All Black squad for France has been named this evening, folks, here in NZ. 33 guys. We'll go through the squad, some of the omissions, who's in, who's out, and the fixtures. You guys can let us know your thoughts on how these guys might go at the Rugby World Cup. I mean, first impression is that there's not really any kind of huge bolters or massive omissions. It's very, very similar to the squad which we saw fielded in the Rugby Championship, and that makes a lot of sense. That speaks to stability and something of a plan. Dane, Samisoni, Taukei'aho, Codie, Taylor. Those are your three hookers. It was always going to be those three guys. I don't think Osofo Amua was even in the conversation, to be honest. Those three guys have been the three for quite some time. And I think anything out of that, other than that, would have just been absolutely a fail. So it was never going to happen. Taylor, de Groot, Laulala, Lomax, Newell, Tuangafasi, and Tamaiti Williams. That's 6 props. So compared to the one other squad we've seen named thus far, which is Samoa, they've got 4, with the one kind of to be confirmed, which will be a prop. So potentially one more prop than some of the other squads will take. Tamaiti Williams is the youngest forward in the pack, with 22 years old, and he's only got 2 caps. He's also the least experienced forward in the pack, but picking on form, I think he's a good selection. And then like de Groot's been in cracking form. Lomax has proved himself to be a starter. He's 27 years old, coming into the peak of his powers as a prop. There's a little bit of a question mark about Laulala. I know the Breakdown crew, I watched their show yesterday, they thought his form's not good enough to be selected, and he's one of the guys that might be on the chopper. And Fletcher Newell's had bugger all rugby, but yeah, they've kind of gone with a safe option in the front row in terms of picking a full 6 props. Locks and Lucy, so Scotty Barrett, Brodie, Retallick, Tupou, Vaa'i, and Sam Whitelock. Again, those are kind of your premier 4 locks that have been playing for the majority of the minutes. In recent times, I mean, guys like Tupou, he's kind of been on the outer for a wee while. Josh Lord has kind of been the more recent guy to get some minutes in the second row here at NZ. But, I mean, Brodie Retallick's injury that he sustained at the weekend is perhaps maybe not as bad as initially expected, because they've not been tempted to go with another guy for the second row. And then Lucy, Sam Cane, he's captain, obviously, Shannon Frizzell, Luke Jacobson, Dalton Papali'i, and Ardie Savea. So you'll probably see some other teams pick one extra Lucy than what we've seen here. Sam Cane's going to be your 7. Shannon Frizzell's going to be your 6. Ardie Savea is going to be your 8 in all likelihood for the kind of big games, barring any kind of injuries or drastic changes in form. Frizzell's been in good form. So is Cane. Cane's not going anywhere. He's the captain, and Ardie Savea kind of picks himself. So good to see Jacobson and Papali'i in the squad. But yeah, it's probably going to be between those 2 guys fighting it out for a bench spot, remembering that Vaa'i and Scotty Barrett can also cover the back row in a pinch. Samapeni Finau is perhaps the unlucky guy in all this, because he had 1 cap recently against the Wallabies the other week and played pretty well, and he can cover lock as well, but yeah, not enough to get in the squad. Maybe if they'd gone with 1 less prop. Akira Ioane is another one of the guys who was recently in the All Blacks 15, and he was always an absolute long shot. Hoskins Tutu as well. Absolutely didn't even make the All Blacks 15. He was basically, he was never in the conversation. So, but some of those guys who over the last few years have been kind of All Blacks regulars who've fallen out of favour come 2023. The backs, Finlay Christie, Cam Roigard, Aaron Smith. That's, again, pretty standard from what we've seen from them in this most recent Rugby Championship. Roigard got a game. Finlay Christie seems to be the second guy, and Aaron Smith is absolutely a starter. I feel a little bit for Brad Weber. He went to Japan with the All Blacks 15, played pretty well, still can't get a gig. Whakatava was a little bit beset by injuries, perhaps hampered his run for the World Cup. Aaron Smith at 34 is your oldest back, and Roigard at 22 is your youngest, so potentially a bit of a changing of the guard kind of in itself there, even if they're very different players. Brodie, D-Mac, and Richie Mo'unga, those guys are your guys who can cover 10, albeit with Brodie and D-Mac essentially being in those squads as utilities, aren't they? I mean, Brodie's probably going to play fullback, but he is the second choice guy for 10, and D-Mac kind of likewise the third choice for 10, and another option in the backfield as well. But I mean, Richie at the moment, especially with that ice cold penalty he kicked against the Aussies, has the 10 jersey locked in. Midfielders Jordie Barrett, David Havili, Rieko Ioane, and ALB. David Havili is perhaps the story of this because he, with his injury, missed out on All Blacks duties recently, but he played like 40 odd minutes the other day in the NPC. The selectors must have liked what they've seen with his recovery because he is in. And then unfortunately for Braden Ennell, remember he picked up a knock in that final game of the Rugby Championship. I haven't seen the full details of what the extent of his injury is, but potentially him having a knock and Havili being fit again means that's a bit of a swap between those two guys. I think everyone else, Jordie in the midfield, Rieko, and then ALB as well. It's pretty steady as she goes. Outside backs, Caleb Clark, Lester Fainga'anuku, Emori Narawa, Mark Talia, Will Jordan. Emori Narawa has had a bit of a back injury since his one cap, and that one cap he did look good, and Fainga'anuku is off to France at the end of this season, so he's potentially one that they could have looked at and maybe not decided to kind of reward with All Blacks caps, but he's been in great form, so they've kept them both. I mean, the good thing about Leicester is he can cover the midfield as well. I mean, you've got Rieko who can kind of likewise switch between wing and the midfield as well. So there's a fair bit of versatility in the squad. Will Jordan who can cover wing fullback. Talia's been in cracking form. Caleb Clark is one that there's been a little bit of a question mark about. But the All Black selectors seem to be pushing on ahead with him. Even as like the 23 guy, which is a kind of a bizarre choice for a guy who's essentially a specialist left winger. But yeah, Dallas McLeod is the guy who got his debut the other day. Again, was always a bit of a long shot to make it to the World Cup. And then old Sean Stevenson as well. He was only ever in the squad as injury cover. And for mine, not really surprising he didn't make it. But guys like McLeod and Ennell, if he's fit, Finau, Stevenson, one of those guys is going to go to the World Cup in the end. There's going to be injuries. So maybe even some of those All Blacks 15 guys, of which none of the guys made it, like a Good Hugh or a Whakatava, or I'd like to see Brad Weber get a crack, but there you go. So like your true kind of bolters in terms of guys who've come out of the blue in the last kind of like Super Rugby season and then got themselves to a World Cup is the likes of a Narawa, a Roigard, a Tamaiti Williams. These guys hadn't played in the All Blacks rugby until very recently and have got themselves in, and then you got your veterans like a Dane Coles. He's the oldest player in the squad. Sam Whitelock's the most capped with 145. He'll have more caps. I said we've seen the Samoan squad already. He'll have more caps the entire Samoan forward back, potentially than the entire Samoan squad. I'm not sure. I didn't add it up. But yeah, there's certainly a heap of experience. There's a bunch of guys, 50 plus caps, a couple of guys, a handful of guys, 100 plus caps. So yeah, it is a slightly younger squad than the Samoan one. Like the Samoan one is an average 29. This is like an average 27, 28 squad. South Africa first up outside the World Cup as a warm-up game. And then games, big one against France to kick things off. We've got Namibia, we've got Uruguay, Italy. It's not that order. It's France, Namibia, Italy, Uruguay. So there you go. That's the All Black squad. What do you guys reckon? There's a fair bit of versatility, like I mentioned. Guys like, Brodie can cover multiple positions. Jordie can cover multiple positions. All the Barretts can cover multiple positions. Jacobson is very versatile. Likewise, Savia. There's a heap of guys in the squad who are not really locked in to any one, which maybe gives the selectors a little bit more leeway with their picks. But anyway, I'm going to head off to Tony's place shortly from Distracted Sports. We'll be recording a podcast talking about all the rugby at the weekend, the Bledisloe Cup and the Box and Argentinians, Wales and England, and all those games that were on, plus this squad. So if you want to check that out, I'll put a card up there. 2 Cents Gets Distracted, the most recent episode, the new episode probably be out tomorrow, I would imagine. But there'll be some old ones up there if you want to check out us talking a bit of rugby. There you go, 2 Cents Gets Distracted. But yeah, you guys let us know your thoughts on the squad, and I'll talk to you guys again soon. See you later.